Remember, with transition questions, most of these words are going to fall into the 4 basic categories. For this question, we see a few of them already. Firstly is kind of in its own category. Obviously, it has to do with time, and that's very specific to certain situations. By contrast, though, is a very fancy way of just saying but. And then, for example, is its own category. And here's a little clue that we can use sometimes is specifically is also in the same category as for example, which means it's very unlikely that either of those answers is going to be correct. If we think in terms of these 4 basic categories, but, so, and, for example, then we can kind of start to classify words, and if 2 words fit in the same category, it's very unlikely that they're going to be right because they're the same category. They probably mean basically the same thing, so how can 2 words that mean the same thing be one right and one wrong? It's very unlikely for these questions. So here already, I'm probably going to say that A and B are wrong. Of course, we need to read it and see, but it's already just kind of helping me get down to fewer answer choices. So let's take a look at these sentences. We should read everything here just in case, but mostly it looks like I'm going to focus on these 2 sentences where the transition word is placed. Remember, we want to read the word that, or the sentence that includes the transition as well as the sentence that comes before the transition. But let's get everything. To explore how blinking affects social interactions, Dutch researchers observed interactions between human speakers and listeners, animated human faces on a screen. The researchers found that when the listeners blinked slowly, the speakers tended to talk for less time. Quicker blinks were associated with longer talking times. Well, I see a contrast here, right? We have quick versus slow. We have long versus short, right? So there's clearly a contrast here. Let's not overthink it. By contrast is perfect. They're contrasting these 2 different ways of blinking. So that's it. Don't get complicated. You may have gotten that without thinking about these categories, but I do think for the hardest versions of these transition questions, thinking about the categories can help us eliminate answers that otherwise might be distractions.